So today on Refuge Radio, we are talking about giants. Yep, you heard it right. We're talking about giants. One of the most famous stories in the Bible is between a boy named David and a giant named Goliath. So what do we do with our giants today? Tune into Refuge Radio to find out. What's up, everybody? Refuge Radio, episode 13. Thank you so much for tuning in or listening, whatever you're doing. We appreciate you so much. We hope you enjoyed the podcast that we have so far. It's hard to believe this is already episode 13, so we're moving right along. If you haven't, please go back and make sure to listen to our past episodes. Let us know what you think. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our channels that we are hosting our podcast on. We would love for you to be able to hear them. We have some great leadership stuff going on, as well as some great devotional principles going on. And before I get started today, I want to thank Impact Productions with Troy Ferguson for allowing us to use the studio, and also want to shout out to Park Home. They've allowed us this furniture. They equip us with this great stuff. So if you're looking for furniture in Central PA, check out Park Home. They have some amazing things that you can buy for your home, office, or wherever it may be. So we are living in this crazy time right now, in this crazy season with this virus going on. We've been in quarantine for about a month, and so when you listen to this, whether it's next week, next month, next year, this is where we're at. We're living in a crazy time right now, and we are all quarantined at home. We are doing different things, and so it's one of these things where there's been a lot of fear that has been brought up. And it really was one of these things where fear and anxiety has taken over. And so I want to address something today, talking a little bit about fear and what we can do with that. See, we all have so many fears. You can have fears of spiders, fear of snakes, fear of heights, fear of clowns. Some of us have fear of clowns, some of us don't. There's also like some weird fears out there. There's a fear of belly buttons. There's the fear of the color yellow. There is the fear of hair. Now, after we come out of this whole time, all of us guys are going to be looking like Chewbacca. Some of us are shaving our heads. I am not. But we're going to come out here looking hairy. So if you're afraid of hair, I advise you to stay away from these guys until they get to a barber. But we have so many of these different fears. And there's actually a fear out there called phobia. And that is actually the fear of giants. See, giants is something that we can kind of relate to because we understand that one of the most famous stories in the Bible is found in 1 Samuel chapter 17, and it is the amazing story of David and Goliath. And I was thinking about David and Goliath, and we need to understand that we might not have giants like Goliath walking around in person these days, but there are giants that roam our world. There are giants that we're facing every day, but they are just giants that are not yet seen. You see, when it comes to giants in our lives, we have to realize that they are out there and they can cast fear into us if we allow them to. Whether we are unaware or completely oblivious doesn't negate the fact that there are giants that are out there. So what really am I talking about? Well, number one, we got to understand first, we all have giants and they all have names. Well, what do you mean by that, Mike? What are you talking about? By that, I'm speaking to that unsurmountable thing that is in your life that constantly is a giant that intimidates you. Whether it's fear, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's loneliness, gossip, lying, cheating, stealing, addiction, envy, hatred, anger, whatever it is, we all have giants that are in our lives. And these giants are things that just come at us all the time. Sometimes in our lives, we will face giants that we can physically see, but a lot of times we're facing giants that nobody else can see. So we have to understand that each giant in our life that intimidates us in fear has a name. You know, your giant might not carry a sword or a shield or a spear like Goliath did, but he fights you with feelings and emotions and your past and all of these things, and he bullies you to be scared of what is happening in this world. We might not have giants that parade up and down the valleys like it said in 1 Samuel where Goliath as this giant would parade up and down and he would make sure that he's seen. But it might not be stomping through a valley, but it might be stomping through your mind at night in your bedroom alone. It might be stomping in the car while you're driving and all you're thinking about is these things and your insecurities and the fear and the loneliness and all of these giants that are just mocking you consistently and constantly. You know, the giants, they bring expectations to you that you can't meet. telling you that you can't conquer them, telling them that you can't beat them, telling them that you can't go against them. This is what Goliath did. Goliath was constantly going at the nation of Israel, saying, you don't have what it takes. You can't beat me. Send your greatest warrior. Why? Because giants love to intimidate us. Giants have names, but understand this, so do giant killers. Giants have names, but so do giant killers. And we have to understand this concept that there are giant killers that are out there. There are giant killers that are ready to take on the giants. See, David, what I absolutely love about David in the Bible, he was like no other one that we have seen yet. David was this fierce young boy who was just a wild man, and he chose to run at his giants and not away from them. See, we have to understand that sometimes in life we can choose to run at our fears, or we can choose to run away from our fears. Now, I know that sounds crazy. Like, you're not going to go up to the biggest guy in your school or your job and go up to him and punch him square in the face, and then he's going to come running after you. It's like you run up, you challenge him, you smack him around. No, we're not talking about this. We're talking about something completely spiritual, something completely different inside of you. You can face your insecurities and you can face the giants that you have in your life head on, or you can run away from them. And so oftentimes the latter is what we do. We run away from our giants. We let our giants dictate to us what's going to happen. And the thing is, giants cross the line. They taunt us. They mock us. When you read in the Bible, you have to have this understanding that Goliath was literally taunting and making fun of God, making fun of the Israelites, making fun of the king, making fun of everyone. He mocked them and he tried to intimidate them. I want you to think about it this way. Think about that you're at your house, and imagine some huge, massive giant walks into your house, claims your room, takes over your bed, takes over your cell phone, takes over your video games, takes over your TV, starts sleeping in your bed, using your towel, using your toothbrush, and the worst of all, he's making fun of you and your whole family, saying there is nothing that you can do about it. Man, that gets really personal. That gets extremely personal. But that's just what we allow these giants in our lives to do. We allow the anger, the pride, the fear, the loneliness. We allow these giants to just come in and bully us all around. Can I tell you that giants will take as much as you allow them to take? Those giants that are in your life that scare you and intimidate you, they will take as much as you allow them to. The longer you let a giant run its mouth, the longer you be intimidated by a giant, the more room in your life you give them. The more room in your mind and your emotions you give them, the longer you don't deal with them. And so we have to have this understanding that this is what we see in 1 Samuel chapter 17, that you have David and Goliath. You have the story of this massive giant who is taunting, who is taking over, who is intimidating and doing all these things. But there is this amazing scripture that we read in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 48. It says, as Goliath moved closer to attack, David ran to meet him. So as the enemy drew close to David, David ran at him. You have to understand that you have to attack your giants head on. You have to go after them full force. You cannot allow them. Now, when you realize this, it's like if you remember that scene from the Avengers, the very first Avengers, where the Incredible Hulk, he picks up Loki and he smashes him left and right and left and right. Like he picks him up and he smashes him around like he's nothing. This is what I'm picturing. I'm picturing Goliath is going to pick up David, smash him to the left and right, and just leave him there. But you know what? This isn't what happens, because David has something on his side that is bigger than a giant. He has God. And this is what happens to giants when God gets involved. God gives David the strength to fight. When you realize this, it changes everything. See, David realized this, and he proclaims in 1 Samuel 17, verses 47, David looks at the giant, looks at Goliath, and says, this is the Lord's battle. He is going to give you to us. So when you have the Lord on your side, you no longer are intimidated by your giant, but you can intimidate your giant. This is why this giant was defeated, was because God, the Lord, was with David. Can I tell you today, whether you're listening or watching this, that there are giants in your life that you can overcome with the power of God. There are giants in your life that all you need to do is call upon the name of the Lord, and he will come in and he will rescue you and he will help you defeat the very thing that's been defeating you. We need to realize that all these battles that we're fighting against, these spiritual giants, this is a very spiritual battle. And if we have God on our side, then we cannot be conquered. And then I love this portion of scripture where it says that David then proceeds to cut off Goliath's head. Now you're thinking, okay, like what does that mean? Reaching into his bag, David takes out a stone and he struck the Philistine right in the forehead. The stone sank into his head and he fell down to the ground. And then David proceeds to go to him, stand over him, takes out Goliath's own sword, and he cuts off Goliath's head. This giant got destroyed by his own sword. David killed the giant with the very weapon that was intended to kill him. See, this is what God does for us. This is what God does. God allows us to get a strength and a boldness to defeat things that are trying to defeat us. And he allows us to go and not just knock it over, but cut off its head. See, the head is the thought process. The head is where your brain is. It's where all these things begin to process. And when you go to that giant and you cut off its head, it no longer can have control over what the body does. That's what we have to do spiritually. We have to face depression, anxiety, anger, all of these things. We have to cut the head off of those giants. And once we cut those heads off, we can declare the victory. But you know what is interesting that we don't read in this passage of scripture is that nowhere in the Bible do we read that David went back to Goliath after he had knocked him over, after he cut off his head. He didn't go back to him and say, "Hey, are you dead?" He never went back to see if the giant was coming back for him. So why do I say that? Because it sounds kind of weird to say. See, we get so used to having giants in our lives that we don't know what to do once they are dead. And so oftentimes we will go back to where they are and we will sit there where they are in death, and we will sit there where they are, and we will allow ourselves to be so acclimated to what has been life for us in fear and depression that we don't know what to do outside of that. See, through Jesus' victory, we have victory over sin. Through his conquering, we can be more than conquerors. Through his new life, we can have a new start. And through his power, we can have the power to live for him. You don't have to live where you killed the giant. You simply leave the giant where he lays and you go off and live the life that you call. You don't have to go back to depression, to anger, to all of these things, these insecurities that are in your life. You don't have to go back to those things. You can simply cut the giant's head off and move on to what God has for you. David then went back to the fields, and then years later, he became the greatest king of Israel. So we have to have this understanding. If you truly want to see victory in your life, you have to run at your giants. You cannot allow your giants to force you to run away, but you have to go after these things full force, 100% straightforward. You have to take that first step against the enemy. And I promise, if you take the first step, God will take all those steps with you, therefore, and you will be able to go right at your giant, and you will be able to fight him. You can make the paradigm shift in your life and in your spirit when you decide to run at your giants. So if you have giants today, if you're listening or watching, and you have giants in your life today, and they have been dictating to you how life should be, speak to those giants today and tell them that they must fall. Declare your victory over the things that have tried to conquer you. Declare victory that God has given to you. You can do this. You can overcome this. But you need a boldness that is inside of you that says, I will no longer run from my giants, but I will run to my giants. Because that's the difference maker. Knowing who is behind you, who is beside you, and who is in front of you. That God of Israel, that same God that was with David to help him conquer Goliath, is the same God that is with you today to help you conquer the giants you have in your life. Listen, I hope you got something out of today. I hope you were blessed by it. Please share this with someone that you might need to hear it. We've become very known for sharing this message all over because we believe in the power of it. We believe that we are called to run at our giants. We are called to run at the things that challenge us. So as you're going through your day, your week, your years, please just have this understanding that you are called to run at your giants. And God is with you. I hope this changes you. I hope it challenges you. I hope it renews you. I hope you continue on this journey with God, knowing that he loves you and he wants you to love people. When you love God first, you can love everyone second. When you do that first thing right, you'll do that second one right. Thank you for tuning in to Refuge Radio.